Hello and welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja Devedi, and in this segment today, we are going to discuss about the new programs of the Punjab government to tackle the menace of drugs in Punjab. This topic is important from the perspective of prelims and also from the perspective of GS mains papers. But here not only we are going to discuss about the problems in Punjab, but pan-India and the certain other initiatives as well. So let's move forward and talk about the topics of discussion. These are the topics that we are going to look at step by step, starting with the news. So, two new programs have been revived by the Punjab government in order to tackle the menace of drugs abuse. That is, of course, very rampant in Punjab, so rampant that a movie also has been made on it. Okay, so here as you can see, what are Punjab government's anti-drug initiative that we are going to discuss. But first, let's start with the issues that are surrounding India's geographical position, that it is sandwiched between the golden crescent, which is a crescent of a drug crescent, golden crescent, and that is the golden triangle. So drug crescent consists of Iran, Afghanistan and Pakistan. That means that drugs are being smuggled through these regions into the northwestern regions of India. And you can see the golden triangle, which consists of Myanmar, Laos, Vietnam and Thailand. It causes an issue in the northeastern region, northwestern and northeastern regions. These two regions are the most affected because of the geographical condition of India here. So let's move forward and talk about the magnitude. What is the magnitude of drug abuse in India? You can see alcohol being on the top. When we talk about drug abuse, alcohol is the most abused substance in India. And 5 crore, at the time of surveying, 5 crore was the number. If we talk about the abusers of cannabis and other opioids. And also 8.5 lakh people are there who are documented to inject drugs. And also Punjab, Assam, Delhi, Haryana as well as Uttar Pradesh, Manipur, Mizoram and Sikkim. These are some of the states which have more than half of drug abusers in the entire India. So you can see these regions need special tending. About 60 lakh people are estimated to need help for their opioid use problem. And if we talk about the entire globe, 190 million people are suffering from drug abuse. If we talk about Punjab, you can see certain data. 55,117 persons were arrested under NDPS cases and 1,683 kg of heroin recovered during the 51-month period. 46,746 cases under NDPS Act were registered by the District Police, State Special Operations Cell and Government Railway Police in the 51-month period between January 1, 2013 to March 31st, 2017. So why is it so important to take drugs? See, it's an entire psychological issue. Drug abusers are not criminals, they are actually victims. They sometimes succumb to peer pressure. First can be that, to be more acceptable. Then we have escapades. That means to escape the realities of any sort, some unwanted situation, you can numb your senses from drugs and hence you will become an abuser. That means your life will depend on it. Your mind will crave it. So, peer pressure, escapade, easy availability. Also, if certain drugs are easily available, such as, of course, we have tobacco and cigarettes, then of course, more and more drug abusers would be emerging. Also, we have experimentation and pleasure senses. Everything can lead to that. And if we talk about the recent emergence, it is because of economical issues as well, employment issues as well. If people are not economically well off, of course, they will resort to some other sort of leisure activities such as drug abuse. Moving forward, let's talk about the impacts. Impacts are many. First impact is, of course, unintentional injuries can happen, accidents can happen, domestic violence incidents, medical problems and even death if too much is consumed. And of course, economic potential of such youngsters, because most of the drug abusers are under 30. So, economic potential of these people get wasted. We cannot tap the economic potential of them. Then it also affects the relationships with family, friends, wives, children, husbands. So it also have an impact on that. And also it causes a lot of financial burden in order for you, because it's something that your mind craves. You have to give in to your mind. If you do not control it, then you will resort to any activity, even criminal activity. You will start stealing from your houses. You will have another sources of income which are illegitimate in nature to just fulfill the needs of drugs. Also, it affects our health, security, peace of mind, peace of family, and development. Diseases like hepatitis B and C of the liver and tuberculosis of the lungs can also happen. Then criminal activities, it get, of course, propelled. Why? Because if somebody is feeling too helpless and too hopeless, because these are victims, they are already in a vicious cycle of resenting themselves, resenting the world, it can lead to criminal activity. Also, suicidal tendencies. When any drug abusers starts to give in to their habits of needing drugs time and again, and they want to come out. Of course, every drug abuser wants to come out someday or the other, but if they fail to do so, they will certainly have suicidal tendencies. These people need our help and not our resentment and disgust. Okay, so let's move forward and talk about the new flagship programs which have been revived. First is the BUDDY, and the second is Drug Abuse Prevention Officer Program. BUDDY, what is BUDDY? It is actually a group that will be selected by a teacher who is known as a senior buddy. So suppose I am the senior buddy, I work in a school. Even if I work in a private school or a government school, both of them will be covered. So I am a teacher and I will choose a group of 5 children, 5 kids from my classes. And these actually, if we talk about the buddy group, this is actually have an intention towards having to look at the vulnerable groups, that are children, and those groups which are they might have a potential to become drug users and abusers. So I will choose 5 children and I am the senior buddy. And the group of children will help each other by trying to identify any signs of drug abuses, and of course then reporting it to me as a senior buddy. And of course not only reporting but also having very positive debates, very positive discussions about the effects and ill effects of drugs. Because the children, if they work in peer, they will of course be more in touch with their group, and not only that, they will be easily counseling their group. And as a senior buddy, I will report any such instance of drug abuse to the principal. So this is forming buddy groups. And then of course it's not based, if I have to counsel some student or some child who is already abusing drugs, I will not do it in a biased manner, not sarcastic manner, not being a bully. I won't do that. I will be counseling the child in a very professional manner, positive manner. Not only I, but every person from the buddy group will do so. So it will verify. There is also a verification process. If drug use is reported or not, we have to communicate with the child, because these children are most of the time they are victims. They might be dealing with certain problems which we do not see on the floor, but inside they are. So collecting maximum details, any history if there is related to drug abuse, somebody in their family uses drugs and abuses drugs, and counsel as a guide, inform the school principal and contact parents, and it's a community participation basically that starts from the school. Then we also have a data about it. 9.51 lakh groups in various educational institutes have been formed, and more than 43.5 lakh students have enrolled as buddies. And if we talk about Drug Abuse Prevention Officer, this program is basically something that is another, not just like buddy, but kind of like buddy, but at a more larger scale, because locality and cluster of houses will be formed, and that locality or cluster will be a group that will be, as a drug abuse prevention officer, my jurisdictional area. Suppose in civil lines, I have been allotted 60 houses. Now, in those 60 houses, I have to take care that any person is not basically vulnerable to any sort of drug abuse. But if I have to encourage more awareness about it, I can go through the entire city. That is the entire gist of this DAPO. And it is based on 2 things. Official volunteer that works under the government, and also citizen volunteer who can be anybody minimum age is 18 years. Okay, and the assignment is honorary in nature. So here also we have data. 6.28 lakh drug abuse prevention officers have already contacted over 11.33 lakh people to make them aware of ill effects of drugs and provide literature on the subject as well. So there are certain challenges. First is legally available drugs such as tobacco and cigarette. So because they are so loosely and legally available, it is, as something is legitimate, is moral. There is a misconception of that. So something is legitimate if it has legitimacy by the government, it is considered moral and okay in the society to smoke. So first problem is that. And this is a gateway to next drugs. So it's very easily available. Children will use it as a gateway. Once they get confident on that, they will move on to some other drug. So lack of availability of rehabilitation center, and even the process of counseling is not very robust, because counseling is something that goes from the psychological level and it is a continuous process. If I as a psychologist, when it comes to drug abuse problem, as addressing those problems, I need to be continuously disciplined and motivated. I cannot be motivated every time. So I have to be disciplined in the sense I have to be paid well. Okay. Then again, after that, I have to understand the psychology of the victims who are having their problems with drug abuse. Another thing is that not only I, but the entire society needs to understand that it's a continuous process. I cannot always be present with the patient or the victim, but the society, everyone of the society, one time or the other, they will be present. So not only a rehabilitation center is needed, but the entire society has to become a rehabilitation center. That is also challenging. Then smuggling of drugs, the sheer position of India when it comes to the geographical area, the geographical region which is sandwiched between Golden Crescent and Golden Triangle. That is another problem because it is rampant. The boundaries are so loose that it is rampant how drugs are smuggled. It is very important that those should be tracked. Okay. So let's move on and look at the way forward. Certain stigma associated with drug taking needs to be reduced, because the society needs to understand that drug abusers are not criminals, they are victims. They themselves need help. Secondly, certain crops that have more than 50% alcohol, those also need to be contained, and that should be on the community level, and there should be a nexus between the officers and the voluntary groups as well. Radical political decisions such as banning alcohol in Bihar, such a radical political step, such steps can also be taken. And education curriculum should, of course, it should not be a taboo, right? There should not be any kind of taboo that we cannot talk about drugs. We have to talk about drugs, because if something doesn't remain a taboo, then more initiatives, more debates can be taking place. Let's move forward and talk about our mains-based question. Okay. Discuss about the magnitude of drug abuse in India along with the flagship programs of the border states to tackle the drug menace. We have to write it in 250 words. So that's it for today. Tomorrow we shall meet again with another segment. Until then, stay updated and thank you so much for watching.